Okay, thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody. Call the meeting to order. As I was saying before, I've asked that this meeting be made optional. We're not going to take a roll call. I know that a lot of you have been Capitol protesting, if not today, possibly on days earlier this week and last week. And there's obviously the expulsion proceedings are still taking place. And I want to be respectful to the fact that people might not have the capacity for this today. So if you don't want to be here, please don't. If there's someplace else that you need to be, please go be in that place. I'm going to get us started. Ask for old business. We can talk a little bit about new business for next week. And then if you want to divide subcommittees to continue discussing your guidelines, please feel free. I myself am going to be leaving. I feel like our community engagement guidelines are in a good space. And we sent the trusted community partner guidelines that we adopted last Saturday over to the PR firm. We also got a message from Fabian, or at least I did, that he's healing well. So that's good news. So I'll open the floor for new business. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to discuss, either about last Saturday's meeting or any of our previous meetings that they have thought about during their at-home reflection time? All right, nothing. My suggestion for our next in-person meeting, which is not this Saturday, but the following, is that we continue to work on our subcommittee groups and basically do it exactly like we did it last Saturday, which was for each subcommittee to go ahead and give a report on where they stand, show any work that they want to share with the full group on the projector, and or ask questions of the full group after they well, I mean, excuse me, I'm really good at talking today. Ask any questions of the full group that they would like opinions or thoughts on. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add to that potential agenda for the following Saturday? Oh, and we'll also, I've been told that the PR firm will be able to join us on, I guess that's the 15th. Have anything else that you'd like to propose we add to that agenda?
Whitney, I just wanted, this is Carol, sorry. I'm just raising this. Quinta had sent me an email the other day asking for the minutes, and I told her that I usually do the Thursday and Saturday minutes together, and then they're submitted to the group, just as, one set of minutes. But if people don't want that and they would rather have them weekly, I can do that. So it's not something that we have to have a motion for, just kind of like a consensus. I was doing it that way. It's easier for me rather than every week having to, churn up minutes. And then I have a little bit of time to, I type everything up. I go back and look at my notes again. And then I also listen to the recording again to make sure that I captured everything. So I just wanted a consensus from the group, what they would prefer.
First of all, Carol, I want to thank you for your diligence in doing all of that. That's really, really amazing. And we're so fortunate to have you. My opinion is that given that we can only vote on them in person, it seems silly to have them delivered in more than one round ahead of that. But I'd love to hear other people's opinions.
That was my thought. That's why I did it that way. But I'm open.
I agree with you, Whitney. I mean, we don't need them weekly, I don't think.
All right, Carol, I say keep doing what you're doing. And again, you're totally off. Anybody else have any other suggestions for what we would need to do in person next Saturday, besides just continue to work towards getting these guidelines hashed out? Oh, well, my dog has a suggestion. Then I thank you all for being here. You are more than welcome to, I don't know how we do moving into subcommittees on Zoom. Quinta, if you've got the key to that process, please share with us so people who do want to stay and get work done in their committees can work. But anyone who, like I said earlier, feels like they need some space tonight or wants to get back to the Capitol or to watching the expulsion proceedings, please feel free to leave.
I'm sorry, I thought you were going to ask for new business.
Oh, I thought I did. Sorry.
His hand is up. His hand is up.
David, new business?
Yes, ma'am. I had a couple of things I wanted to ask. One, Sharon Kay from WFSK Jazzy 88 over at Fisk University would like to interview somebody for PB Nashville. So I was going to put that before everybody. Do we have a public speaking professional or someone that would like to go there to be interviewed about our process and what we're doing and how we would like to engage the community through her radio station? And then two, how do I recommend somebody to be a budget delegate?
On two, you ask them to go to the same website where we all signed up. There's a link there for people to volunteer as budget delegates. So I think that's pb.nashville.
Was that Whitney? I think you froze.
Oh, sorry.
What did you say at the beginning?
I just said on question two, I believe people can sign up to volunteer at the same website where we all signed up to volunteer, which is that pb.nashville.gov. On number one, David, I think you would do a lovely job. You have a beautiful voice.
Whitney, may I make some suggestions?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the purpose of the Community Outreach Committee. So if there's someone on that Community Outreach Committee that feels comfortable enough to go and give the interview, if not, it's usually the chair or the co-chair that goes and participates. And if that's not acceptable for either one of you, then we have someone, usually Fabian does participate or attend if necessary. If there's no one available to go or that feels comfortable enough giving an interview. So do you know when the interview is requested, David, the interview time? Are you on mute, David? David, you're on mute.
All right, thank you. Because she does so much of her program in advance, if we could get somebody there by the end of next week, it would, because time is of the essence. So if we can get somebody there by the end of next week, she can probably go ahead and record it and then put it in line for somewhere down the line. If that's not going to work for her, then she would probably say, come in on such and such a date, but it's probably going to be 2 to 3 weeks down the road.
Well, David, you are on the community engagement subcommittee. So once again, my nomination is for you.
I hung myself. Okay.
Second.
Thanks.
We have fake nominated you on a fake voting process. All right, any additional, and thank you for getting us that opportunity, David. That's awesome. Good job. Any other new business or anything anybody wants to discuss?
Hi, this is Fatia with District 32. I don't know if Fabian had let you know, Whitney and Quinta and the voting community members, that I won't be at the meeting next Saturday. So I wanted to ask if anybody else from voting was on tonight.
Yes, and your breakout rooms are already set up, and I'll explain that process to you. I don't see, I have 3 people who are slated to be on the voting subcommittee. So let me see, they are yourself, Lauren, and Shivan. Am I saying your name right, Shivan? Siobhan. Okay, I'm sorry, Siobhan. All right, so the process is this. When you came in, that's why I also had your names, not only for the purpose of the video to be correct on the screen, but also you have been assigned to your breakout room based on your topic. So when the chairman calls for you to move to your breakout rooms, we'll automatically switch you to your breakout room. You'll have 60 minutes to participate in your discussion. If you need less than 60 minutes, you can come back to the main room at any time. And yes, the chairman has now told us that this is not a mandatory meeting for you to stay in the entire time. So you can leave the main meeting at your leisure. And then we will close out the entire meeting session when the last person has checked out. Are there any questions about that?
Tia, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
And Tyler Brasher has hand up.
Yeah, thanks for recognizing me. I just had a question on, I think we've talked about this before, but do we have the ability as a subcommittee to set up a meeting outside of the larger group? Maybe I missed that.
If you need to meet as a subcommittee to talk about your guidelines, you send an email to bb@nashville.gov, and we will set it up, but it also has to be announced to the entire group, just in case anyone else wants to participate.
Okay.
Gary Schechter has his hand up.
Yeah, if our subcommittee wants to meet for over 60 minutes, are we allowed to do that if we wanted to? Because we have until 8 o'clock or whatever.
That is correct. You can. Does anyone else have their hand up? Chairman, what is your pleasure?
All right. Well, everybody, please enjoy your subcommittees. Thank you all for your hard work. I will see all of your beautiful faces our next in-person meeting. Well, I'm out of here.
Hi, Quinta or Misha. I suspect people have broken into subgroups. I wrongly tried the WebEx when I first joined, and then I remembered about the Zoom. Could I go to a breakout room?
I'm going to move you right now. You'll just wait 1 second, all right?
Thanks so much.
Mhm.
How are you doing today? Oh, he's gone. Oh, man.
Okay, Michael Jones,
Oh,
I'm going to move you to your assigned room. Are you
he's
there?
gone. Yeah, he's gone.
He's gone. Okay, great. Hi, Misha.
Hey, Quinta.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm all involved in this capital. Oh, that's his name, William Lambert. That's what I want his name, William Lambert. I need to do some research on him. He's the one trying to strong arm me.
Okay,
Well,
I want to have you check something. Can you go to?
oh, I'm sorry. We're sorry. Excuse me. I forgot we were recording.
Correct. Can you go to breakout rooms and see if when you click on it, does it allow you to join the different rooms as a co-host?
Did you make me a co-host?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I apologize for that before. Let me see. I'm gonna try this one first. Yes, I can.
Okay, so will you which do you want to check in on?
I'm gonna check on the proposal development because that's where I started before, and also voting because that's the one I'm most familiar with. So I'll go to those two first.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll go to those two. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Rarely.
Elizabeth, are you all okay? Do you have all your people?
We do not. We're looking for Gary. He was trying to share his screen and Zoom requested that he exit and then come back in. So I think that he might need to be let back into this room.
Okay, hold on. Okay.
There he is.
Yeah, there's Gary. Perfect.
Thank you very much, Ms. Quinta.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. Okay, if you need anything, I'll just be kind of going back and forth. Just holler, okay?
All righty, thank you so much.
You. Ah, perfect. I need to be looking at the document. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah. So you were saying this is page 5.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, where it
really-
says steering
Ye-
committee decision making.
Mm-hmm. So I do like the idea of keeping the language to make decisions by consensus. I think that's really important just to say when you can, just make a decision, right?
Mhm.
And then the only add would be to just be clear as to what a majority is and what a quorum is. And that you have to be able to have, a sufficient number of people present. Where the quorum is a half and then a majority is 2/3.
Yep.
I'm okay with half. Just yeah, like I and is it are we
Well,
is what I'm
there's
hoping.
Quinta.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's us recording.
Okay. Hi, Quinta. Okay, she's not. But
Oh.
yeah,
Is she
Quinta,
in?
I'm just checking to
in.
make sure everything is okay. Do you need anything?
No, I
Well, we
think
were
we're
just
going to. Yeah,
yeah,
we're just
we
chatting.
were discussing the extra dates of May 13th and May 27th. What happens after that? Do we pull back or do we still meet? Just curious.
Okay, so after the subcommittees can complete their guideline development,
Right. Right.
it goes back to the main committee, and the main committee
Right.
basically has to go through every subcommittee's recommendations and adopt them. And then you can make a decision as a group as to whether or not you want to go through everything and adopt it as a whole document, or if you want to adopt it by different sections. It's up to you as to
Okay.
how you adopt it. But you use
Okay.
that time in May to do the adoption. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, I'm good with signing off. I'm multitasking now, so I can get back to my work emails.
Kenyatta, I have one question for you before you go.
Yes, ma'am.
Remember our chairman, I think was his name, Michael.
Mhm.
He wanted us to, well, we didn't have a homework assignment, but he indicated, we need to figure out what that dollar amount is. I guess we can do that in person when we meet. Yeah. Okay. So this is a moment to kind of pull back and take it easy. I'm down for that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay. Quinta, thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you,
We'll see
Quinta.
next
Have a
week.
good evening.
All right.
Okay.
See you next week.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye, Ramona.
Kenyatta, see you next week.
Yes, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.
So that would be for this, just for the subsection on attendance.
Yeah, because we had discussed that and, kind of we voted to adopt it as it is with some slight changes.
Mhm.
And actually my minutes may have that spelled out in them. I'll double check.
And if I recall, I do have a pretty specific recollection of Whitney stating that she would draft. So if it's wrong, I don't know what that means, but I thought that she said she would. So I'll close that question. But yeah, we can always fall back on the minutes, and draft ourselves.
Okay. So now we can jump to budget delegates on page 6.
Yes. I did have a note on the first sentence that I do think that we need to be consistent in our language. There's designated area, there's program area. We're defining program area at the beginning, so I think we should use that language. Just a small little thing. And then conceptually, guys, I think I finally realized, with us just never going through the process, I think I realized that what was missing the whole here for me was understanding that there is a communication potential between the budget delegates and the steering committee, and perhaps the potential for the steering committee needing to revise or refine or clarify. And maybe that hasn't happened in the past, but I do think if that's true, it might be important to make sure that we talk about that. Although I did start reading in the other section about initial review and subsequent review and didn't get all the way through it. But I think it makes sense for us to at least address that communication and liaison facilitation role between the steering committee and the budget delegates. That was long-winded. Do you know what I'm talking about?
That's one where we were asking Fabian about that language that seemed to be going in circles, and he
Yes.
said that the steering committee would select the budget delegates, and he almost made it sound like the budget delegates are from within the steering committee.
And I think that that's not it, but that we could have someone from the steering committee communicate with the budget delegates if there's any desire to clarify the guidelines or to just to report back on progress. But that's where I feel like we need more information. Quinta's on. Maybe she could help us as someone who's been through the process.
Hi, can I help you with what?
Hello. So there is language kind of woven throughout the roles and responsibilities that kind of pertains to the steering committee's role and the budget delegates' role. But where I think I'm confused is I'm trying to figure out whether or not we need to put in language to capture the potential that the budget delegates might need to come to the steering committee for clarification on something or for guidance on something that's in the guidelines. So I didn't know if that had come up before or whether or not that's the way the process works.
The process works where if they do have a question about an item that's in the guidelines, they still submit it just as you would to Fabian, and Fabian would answer the question, or in this case, if I'm running that particular section, if it's in the guidelines, then we will address it based on what you all have set in the guidelines. If it's not in the guideline, if it's a legislative question, then it does come to the steering committee for further clarification or further direction. They don't come to the steering committee, but the question comes to the steering committee. If it's a question that's regarding a process that is how that particular department works. Let's say they have a question about parks and recreation or education. I don't know what your main topics are going to be for this year, But if they have a question about those would be directed directly to the department head through Fabian's office. Does that answer your question? Okay, you're on mute, Elizabeth. I'm sorry.
Yes, happens at least one time every meeting. That was very clear. So we do have a middle piece. The facilitator role or mayor's office role would field that question and then bring it to the steering committee as necessary.
That's correct.
Okay, and that would be if there's something that's clearly where the guidelines apply, then you guys would just answer the question. If it's not, if it has more to do with something that's not addressed in the guidelines, that's where the steering committee would need to weigh in.
That's
okay.
correct.
Thank you. Gary and Carol, do you guys recall seeing that in any other portion of the guidelines as to how that would work? Because I do think that would be nice to capture, because I'm not really remembering seeing that.
I don't recall seeing that. And didn't Fabian say that there would be another facilitator hired that would be the liaison between the budget delegate committee and the steering committee?
Can I clarify that?
Yes.
Okay, so they do have a facilitator that is hired to assist them with the process, just as we assist you. They take the guidelines that you have set, and that facilitator helps them with the process of moving through their responsibilities as budget delegates. So the facilitator is, as you can see under budget delegates, if no facilitator is secured, then the report progress is back to the steering committee is done by Fabian. But the facilitator does report back to the steering committee. You'll go to like monthly meetings as opposed to weekly meetings. And the facilitator will report back to you as to the progress of the budget delegates.
Okay.
The steering committee and the budget delegates should be as independent as possible, so that, so that the community feels that, you know, this is a fair process, and that even though the steering committee sets the guidelines, it's not telling the budget delegates what projects to select.
Correct. I understand.
That makes sense. So that it's kind of like branches of government. So it seems like maybe there is some flexibility, and I wonder on page 5, the top, where we're sort of struggling with that language about the steering committee can't report to the steering committee, right? I wonder if we just need to leave it open as that we would receive informational updates, right? Rather than providing informational updates, we would, the steering committee is going to receive them, right? And review them. Because it sounds like it could go a couple of different ways as to facilitator or appointee, per what Fabian said too. So do you guys think that I may need to read this part again to think a little bit more about what I think is captured here and what might need to be added there. And Quinta, I have another question. I'm a hot bench tonight in terms of lots of questions here. What about the is there a contemplation that there would essentially be any revision then, which would require reconvening the steering committee and approving revisions to the guidelines and voting again once the budget delegates have begun their process?
Well, after you set those guidelines, the guidelines are what you call a fluid document, a flexible document. So if there's something in there that is going to hold up the entire process of moving forward, it has to come back to the steering committee. So, but I will say that having been in both positions, your guidelines are pretty clear. And so the budget delegates follow those guidelines. But if, you know, something would happen, yes, you would have to, that's why the steering committee will still be convening once a month at least. It would come back to the steering committee for action, yes.
And thank you for explaining that. I think that was a major barrier in term. I know you guys have told us that before, but all right. So fluid document convening every month. Thank you.
So your section here where I'm reading where you have elect up to 2 liaisons from the steering committee to communicate. That I don't think that is something that you would put. You would have the facilitator, or you could. There's no chairman of the budget delegates, just so you know. They're all just a committee, but the facilitator or the mayor's office would bring that information to you if they're on a regular basis on the status of the budget delegates process and progress in moving forward. And then if there's any concerns, then they would bring that to you as well. So remember, keep the 2 committees separate. Okay.
So we don't really have that. There's no reason for us to elect. That's just going to be something that's built into the process.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, we added that in last Saturday based on what Fabian had said when he was talking to us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm just telling you my experience with it, and I'm just telling you how it's worked in the past. If there's something if there's something that you want to change, you can bring that up, and then when he comes back, that's something that you all can put in there if you want to. But you asked me a question, so I'm answering your question based on my prior knowledge. And if he said that you could do that if you wanted to. The only thing that I see as a problem is when we have the 2 entities working independently for the purpose of not having a group tell another group what to do. I mean, I know it says that you are to communicate and collaborate. Now that is the word collaboration is the part that's going to cause some problems.
Got it. So we can receive it. We can receive information through the protected channel that is the facilitation channel, but not direct.
Right. The reason why, another reason why, just so you think about it is, you set the rules, they select the projects. If there's a problem, how are you going to objectively solve the problem if you were in the problem of making the problem?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So you have
separation of powers.
Separation of powers, right? Because you're the power that says yes or no about anything. So you don't want to involve yourself in the process because then you can't self-judge. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. And separation of powers is important. So I'm glad we're spending time with this to really understand it, because it definitely didn't seem clear to me or to Carol. Great. So we'll fix that on Saturday. See. Do you guys want to flash forward to the second half of page 6 on the budget delegate section where we were before I started asking a million questions?
Yeah, that's where we had landed to continue on, so we can go ahead and continue there. I was looking ahead at the next page. I think we have to decide the last bullet under budget delegates may include a 5% contingency for overages in each proposed project. So we need to decide if we're going to keep that at 5%. But we can, let's start from the top under budget delegates. You were saying, Elizabeth, about defining the area. I just see that it says a geographic area defined by the mayor's office for said PB program.
Yes, it's on page 3, the first time, the program area language. And I was just trying to make sure that we were tracking that language throughout the document, and using the same phrase rather than designated area.
Okay. All right, so make that change to program area. Um,
I wonder if it might be good to kind of in keeping with what I was talking about with document integrity and subsections, it might be nice to capture part of what Quinto was pointing out was the purpose of the budget delegates and the separation between, you know, the steering committee and the budget delegates. I wonder if we can add a placeholder to chew on that a little bit and to maybe put here's what the budget delegates, you know, here's the generally speaking, that they're the executive branch kind of.
Sorry, a second ago, you guys said to change somewhere else. It says to say program area.
You know what? No, it was that program area was already on page 3. And so I just thought we would use program area on page 6 as well, just to be consistent. Because I
Where
had
it
dropped. Yeah, we already did it. I'm sorry.
Thought that we needed to change it to, and I was like, where?
Yeah, where is it? Well, and I have a little star on mine to have a little definition of program area, so that'll be my dessert after we finish the hard stuff. So if you guys are cool with it, under the main heading of budget delegates, like that at the top here, I wonder if we could, similar to when we have the steering committee, you know, we sort of have that statement of like our goal is to be clear and to, you know, draft these things, and we have a preference for drafting and building on previous drafts. I wonder if we can just add a placeholder for, you know, kind of talking through some of the confusions that we're having right now as to how budget delegate and steering committee stuff relates to how the different pieces relate. And I know it's outlined with participatory budgeting generally, but I think it might be nice to add something there. It makes sense to me that they would need to do training and that they're discussing, categorizing, prioritizing. And then I guess the whole process is outlined in more detail later, but and then this I guess captures what Quinto is saying, is that they're making the initial determination of the eligibility prior to kind of developing the idea, and that they're doing this with the assistance from the issue committee, steering committee, and Metro staff. What is issue committee?
It's idea committee.
Okay.
So that's
we
been,
don't have an idea committee.
we don't do that now because we're just collecting ideas online.
Right. You can take that out.
The rest of this does make sense to me, that they're determining if it's eligible, and then they're helping to develop it in partnership with, you know, basically the people who know. In terms of developing the full project proposals that have a broad impact on the community, it says consulting with Metro Nashville residents and stakeholders. Is that basically, are they going back to the idea proposers, or are they casting a wider net and connecting with stakeholders? I wonder.
I wonder if that would, because this was for the Bordeaux community, so they would have to go. So in that instance, they would go back to the residents, I presume.
And it makes sense that that would be something that would need to be done in developing the proposal. I'm looking at the proposal development portion.
Could I provide some further information?
Yes, please.
Okay. So once the proposals are presented to the budget delegates, they look at the proposal form has information on it that is supposed to be descriptive enough for them to decide if they're eligible or ineligible. Sometimes that doesn't happen. And so the budget delegates, through your guidance here, have the permission to contact that idea submitter, the person that submits the idea, to get further information. They have the permission to go to the location where they're talking about doing the project, to take pictures or, or write a descriptive that goes back to the budget delegate committee so that they have further enough information to determine if the idea is eligible or ineligible. So that's what that instruction gives them permission to budget delegates permission to take that extra step other than just take the piece of paper that's submitted by the resident and say, oh, we don't understand this, and then toss it out. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah.
That's great. So you're really sort of pushing on eligibility, and I have to reframe. Eligibility doesn't mean yes, no. I mean, there's what Fabian was referencing as the creativity of trying to figure out, okay, what is this seed of an idea? What is it? What does it really mean?
Right.
Okay. I kind of want to revise that help to develop full project proposals. So oh no, that now that Quinta's explained it, it makes perfect sense. Help to develop full project proposals that address needs and have a broad impact on the community. I wonder if we could be a little like add a placeholder to be more explicit about the connection between the idea as submitted and then the development of a full proposal. I'm
sorry, you said before you said and the development of a full proposal, you said some words right before that.
now I have to remember them.
Well, you were saying ideas, but I think that's up above where it says discuss, categorize, and prioritize initial project ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going further down, and then once they've done that, then they're going to develop full project proposals.
Mm-hmm.
Can I give you a little input on that information? It might be helpful? Okay, so you have a bunch of ideas that have been submitted by the residents.
Mm-hmm.
When you get this batch, say there are 400 ideas, you kind of put them into categories like recreation, libraries, transportation, arts. You try to put them into categories, and it will be based on the ideas. You put however many, and you might have a miscellaneous category. But that way, when you start going back to Metro staff, because remember, the budget delegates are going to develop the full proposal, which means the description that goes on the ballot, as well as it has to be within a certain budget. Get your budget information from the Metro department. So you need to know what department it's going to, so you have to put it into a category so you know which department it goes to. So that's what that discuss, categorize, and prioritize initial project ideas mean. Come up with the categories and put these ideas in specific categories that can be presented to departments of Metro government, so they can then say, this project would be funded or would be implemented through, for instance, the libraries. This would be implemented through transportation. This would be implemented through parks and recreation. So that's what that line means. After you get those categories set, then That's where you go further as you go down your bullet points to develop the proposal. Is the proposal eligible? Meaning, does it meet the criteria that you have set for all of the guidelines for projects to be funded? Because it might be that the proposal's ineligible because it doesn't meet the American Rescue Plan guidelines for funding. So the budget delegates will sort out all of your ideas based on the requirements of the funding source. And then also eligibility. Somebody could present an idea and they live in Rutherford County. So if they live in Rutherford County, they wouldn't qualify. So those are the things that the budget delegates will be sorting through in terms of looking at eligibility based on the guidelines that are set by the steering committee and the guidelines that are set by the American Rescue Plan contract budget. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Okay. And then, as I said, in the sections down where you talked about consulting, performing, submitting, and any additional work, the important part is that the proposal has to be clear enough that when the voter votes on it, it can be accomplished. So it can't be a kind of abstract statement like we want to clean up North Nashville. Has to say want to do certain things at a certain place at a certain location. All of that has to be in the proposal. Maybe it would be good for you to see what a proposal looks like, because of how the ballot, it has to be something that the ballot can interpret the idea to the voter. So it has to be more specific. So that's why you have that part about you consult with the resident stakeholders who presented it. You get pictures so that you can clearly describe what the idea is. You get the input from Metro staff as to whether or not this is something that can be approved. And of course, you have already identified whether or not it's going to be eligible based on your guidelines. So they have those requirements they have to follow.
Quinta, would it be possible to get a sample proposal, even if it's just a dummy one? Because I'm very visual, and I think having that attached in here as a sample would be helpful for future subcommittees, because we're looking at this without having gone through the process, and we don't know what the proposal form looks like, and it would make more sense to actually see it on paper and have it as part of this reference guideline.
I don't see any reason why you cannot have it. I think I'm going to look through while you look for a minute. It might be in the budget delegate book that I think he distributed to you earlier. He doesn't have the sample proposal sheet, but yes, that's something that I'm pretty sure that I don't see any reason why you can't have a copy of that. Oh, it is in there. Okay, if you go to, remember the budget delegate book that he sent out to you saying that this is the next step that has to be worked on after you finish your work with the guidebook? If you go to page 11, the proposal form template, that is the document that has to be completed by the budget delegate committee for each project that becomes a formal proposal for funding. So that if you go to page 11, if you don't have the book, the budget delegate book, I'll make sure that you get it. But it's on page 11, and it talks about the project title, the cost, the short description, the long description. That's all developed by the budget delegates. And then they attach any photos. It says attach photos, images, anything that can be more descriptive about the actual proposal itself. And the reason why I'm going to tell you, because it doesn't say this in the guidelines, the reason why that's important is because when it gets voted on, if there is an issue that might come up because of a discrepancy that has occurred after the vote has taken place, they use this document with all of that descriptive information to examine and then bring back to the steering committee. This is an issue that has to be resolved. The steering committee then resolves it if it's been something that's been accepted as one of the projects to be funded. So if you go to page 11 in the book, that's the form that has to be completed.
Okay, Elizabeth and Gary, do you think it's advantageous to slip that in here?
I think it makes a lot of sense to have that sample. And I also like the idea of capturing in our general, this beginning part of the guidelines. I think what's missing for me is this idea that there's flexibility, creativity in the development of the idea. And that the ideas need to be categorized, grouped, and then developed into something actionable is kind of the way that it sounds to me. Eligible and actionable. And maybe that's just part of the vision, again, just to help the next steering committee to understand how this fits together. But it makes perfect sense what someone will put on an idea sheet is going to be abstract or not abstract, it's going to be a little seed of an idea. It's not going to be a full proposal. But I love the idea of having a sample.
Yeah, my note said I put next to it if the proposal is vague.
Yeah, but there's a great deal of power in the budget delegate role to develop and to fully flesh out what is essentially an idea that becomes an actual proposal.
Yeah, they're the ones deciding how to dole out that $10 million. Or $9,300,000.
Right. It's so much money that I can't wrap my mind around it. Do you guys, I feel like we've made some good progress in understanding, thanks to Quinta guidance here, as to maybe some things we could add to that budget delegate section to make it clearer and really in your face as to what they're doing. Do you guys want to go to the last section on page 7, which is the budget delegates may organize into subcommittees? That all of that seemed pretty straightforward until you get to the 5%. And that's where we have the facilitator reporting back to the steering committee, or to report as a whole body, I guess. Let's see.
Quinta, I have a question for you. Who decides like how much is spent on the projects? Like, are we, is the steering committee saying, I don't know, how is it decided how much is spent on on these projects? Is it purely the budget delegates?
No. When the idea is submitted by the resident, I'll kind of use an example. We want to put landscaping at the corner of 5th and Broadway. I'll just say that. So the department that would have the responsibility for implementing that will provide the budget delegates with a cost for doing that, to actually make that happen. That would be, I would say, for example, we know for street for what do you call it? Those traffic things. What do you call those breakers? Those street bumps, speed bumps. We know we know that costs $69,000 to put a speed bump in. So
For what?
69, yeah. So we would know the budget delegates would be given a list based on the eligible projects. They would be given a cost list of all of the things that were being considered to be a full proposal written document. So say, for instance, if an item, that an idea, funding of an idea is more than $10 million, of course, it's not going to be eligible, okay? Now, so if you have ideas that exceed the $10 million when you add all the ideas up, then the budget delegates prioritize and they vote on the ideas that they want to be submitted. But in this case, I believe with the $10 million, this 2023 project, each district is going to at least have one idea on the ballot. Remember he said that, right. One proposal on the ballot?
Yes.
So if it comes up that that exceeds the $9,300,000, the budget delegates have to go back through the proposals and they will have to vote to make sure that each district has something on the ballot, but that is within the budget of the 9.3 million. So there may be an idea from one district that would cost $1 million and another idea in the same district that might cost 500,000. So the budget delegates would vote which idea they would put on the ballot based on what you call eligibility, because if it costs $1 million, then that means there's probably more than the amount that's been allotted. Remember with the SDI, how each district has a certain amount allotted to it? It's got to stay within that budget. So that's the responsibility of the budget delegates to weed out it based on eligibility, based on the guidelines that are set by you and the American Rescue Plan.
I have a question for you. So each resident 14 years and older is going to have 5 votes. So I presume then you'll have like the top 5 projects out of those 5, from all of those votes. What if the combination of those 5 projects exceeds the 9.3 million?
Okay, they'll do the first 4 votes. Well, okay, so each resident gets 5 votes, but let's say you have when all of the votes are counted, the votes are ranked by hierarchy. So when you have in this particular case, every district is going to get a project on the ballot, but those that inside that district, remember this because this is different than what we did with North Nashville Bordeaux. Every district is going to get a project. You understand what I'm saying? So so there will be, it won't matter, I guess it won't matter if all the districts, some districts they have to stay within their budget. They will have to stay within the budget for that district. So I don't want to say anything like a number, because this is just a example. Say District 1's budget is 500 and District 2's is $1 million. So the projects in District 1 will have to stay within the 500. The projects within District 2 will have to stay within the $1 million. That all adds up to the 9.3. So the selection will be made by budget delegates within the district, but by the fact that you stay within the budget of that district, it will not exceed the 9.3 million. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Fabian, we gotta be back. Fabian had like a spreadsheet that he showed us that broke down where it's like every district gets one ballot item, and then based off of the ones that get the most votes are ranked higher for the money being spent, and as that money runs out, the ones that got the least number of votes become less likely to get funded because they So if you think that if the delegates choose something for an area that's very, very cheap because they think that area will get the least number of votes, but they still want to fund that thing, that it would happen probably, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
And then what'll happen also is that if you don't spend 9.3 million, then with the every district getting a vote, then they go through and they look again to see what money's left over. That's where you have the contingency, because you need to have a pot of money set aside, because believe me, by the time you get ready to go into project implementation with the increase in cost, you have to have money somewhere to cover that extra cost. So that's why you really don't spend all of the money. Any other question? Now you do know that everything the budget delegates do comes back to the steering committee. So after they do the ballot is approved by the steering committee. It's not that you don't have any say. The ballot has to be approved by the steering committee.
Okay, 5% of the entire project, the 9.3 million is $465,000. I think that's enough to spread around. Do you guys?
well, it gets really weird when we talk about how that can be spent, like because of the ARP, that culture index thing, right?
Yeah, that's the SVI. I'm just saying, I don't think we need to play with the 5%. I think we can leave it as it is. Because it gets it's overages in each proposed project. So I think that'll cover whatever may come up.
Yeah, I think that overage, I put a little note here of the that we need to, like, the steering committee can't just like arbitrarily decide where to spend the leftover money, because they are still restricted by the initial rules of, like, the if we like,
Still needs to be legal.
like the budget delegates can't be like, let's build a $2 billion water park, and then the steering committee just gets to spend the rest of the money, right? Like, that's not.
Well, and I think if we were going to change that percentage, I mean, we would need so much more information to even weigh in on something like that in an educated way. I mean, I agree with you, Carol and Gary. I think that leaving it as is makes a lot of sense. And I do think that the language after that a budget delegate can't initiate or be the main representative of or participate. Basically, it can't be for them. They can't have a personal benefit. That makes sense.
And isn't it correct that the steering committee cannot vote? We do not vote on any of these projects, correct?
We can't initiate, be the main representative of, or participate in projects from which we'll receive a personal or financial benefit. And then on voting, let's see. I don't see anything in the voting section.
Quinta, is that correct? As a steering committee member, when it comes time to voting in October or November, I'm not to participate in voting for a project?
You may participate in voting on any project from which you do not get personal benefit. So last year, the steering committee approved that the steering committee members could vote, but they could not vote on projects for which, like, I could not vote on That was, my street was on the ballot. I could not vote for my street as a project. I could vote for any other projects that were on the ballot.
Okay.
So that benefit language, I think, can stay as is for steering committee and for budget delegate. But I think in the voting section, I'm just making a note that they may want to clarify that in their section. Um, Are you guys, I think the facilitator section is fine. I didn't see anything that gave me pause. The facilitator, if we capture earlier that it's someone who is appointed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't have any problems with that section.
And it has that same benefit language, the limitation that the facilitator also can't have a personal benefit.
I'm going to ask you to, I see that when we set up the breakout rooms, you would have 2 minutes remaining. And you are the only group that is meeting right now. So you're all going to go back to the main room and you can continue to meet. Remember, you asked, could you stay longer if you wanted to? Because you're the only ones. You're all going to go back to the main room and you're going to continue to meet as long as you'd like. Okay. So
sounds good.
If something happens, just dial back in and I'll make sure that you're all still connected. All right. So I'm going to close the room and move you to the main room now. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Is everyone here? Is everyone here?
Yeah.
Okay. Keep meeting.
Yeah, we have to unmute ourselves again after moving rooms, I think.
Okay. Unmute yourself.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm unmuted. And we gained Tiara Thomas.
Hi, Tiara.
Hello, everyone. I am from the mayor's office, so I'm just hopping in just to kind of see how this process is going. I added to the team once Fabian went out sick, so I'm just here watching.
It's great to have you. We're a determined group.
Yes,
Thank
welcome to the
you.
rules and regulations group.
That's right.
Thank you. Y'all are doing awesome. Thank you.
So if you guys wanted to call it, I'm okay going to watch television for my evening, but like, I was like, hey, we're allowed to if we want to stay. There was the 3 of us on. I figured the rest of the groups looked like they had less people and they might be just adjourning. But if you guys want to call it, I'm cool with that.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but we have this little implementing participatory budgeting with ARP funds. We have the mayor's office designees, which I've read through that and I'm fine with it. Same as with the facilitators, and it also has the disclaimer language. I'm good with that. And then we have just Metro staff, Metro council, Metro liaisons, and then we're done.
I agree. Maybe what we could do if you're
can you stick it out, Gary, or not?
Oh, yeah, I'm great to stay. I was kind of just kidding. I was like, I'm gonna go watch television, but I was trying to not pressure you guys into staying if you didn't want to. About
because
this section,
I think if we knock out these sections and then we still have Saturday to regroup and discuss a little bit more if we have an aha moment after we leave today.
I love that, Carol. I think that makes a lot of sense because really the meatier part is, page 8, that implementing participatory budgeting, but the remainder of the sections appear to all be pretty I don't think that we're gonna have too much of a problem with those sections.
Yeah.
I wanted to move this implementing participatory budgeting out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't, to me, it's screwing with the flow where we go from describing roles to listing off this, like, what is this thing that we keep mentioning? Which, yeah, like, if it needs to be in this section, drop it, up here where our vision statement or something is, right?
Absolutely. I think it makes a lot of sense to put it closer to the beginning or in a different section because it is dropped in the middle.
I think it makes sense to put it more in under budget delegates, where it even brings up that you're gonna, attend a rescue plan, an American Rescue Plan project training.
Mhm.
Or let's see, we've got executive committee, steering committee.
And it kind of gets to really that whole program area and what is this thing anyway. At the very beginning on page 3, it could go anywhere, but Gary is right, it does not belong where it is.
No, I agree. It's not even consistent in the way the titling is done either.
So move it where you want to move it. Gary, where do you think?
No, I don't actually have an answer to that.
Move to, oh, you got question marks. Fair. Do you guys want to zip through? So we'll move that and then we'll zip through the remainder of the section. Let's move it. It really, it screams to me as like introductory language, because then we're defining program area and then we're talking about what this thing is. But I could also be persuaded to put it under budget delegates. Do you want to move it to budget delegates for now and then?
Could I make a suggestion?
Yes.
If you feel it's descriptive of what the whole PB is, make it an introductory part to the explanation of participatory budgeting.
So page 3. And this is where, so the first one is like everyone can participate, and then we're also going to define program area there anyway, right? What that word means, and then you want to put it there.
So I'm sorry, I guess I missed that note of where we're going to put that definition. But I'm totally on board with putting it right, right next to where we put that definition. So right before steering committee.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Want to put it in like everything gets moved down when I do that. So we want to put our definition of program area, and we put in definition of ARP.
Yes, and I was even going to just have a footnote to program area too. We don't need to make a big deal out of it. It just bothered me that it wasn't defined, but I love the idea of just kind of spelling it out, because I do feel like the clarity that if we can bring more clarity to this, I think it will help the next group.
I actually think we have the opening paragraph that says the following represents the Metro Nashville participatory budget program, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. I think the implementing participatory budgeting with ARP funds would go above roles and responsibilities.
Sure.
You show way up to the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, right after the following represents the budget program, and then this is telling you this is what the program is, this is what it does, and then it's saying you as a participatory budget committee member, these are your roles and responsibilities.
And that program area thing, that can seriously be a footnote. I will not forget about it because I'm so fixated on it, but I'm with you, Carol. You've solved the problem.
I think putting those two definitions right there, like, is
This is what this is.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man, next year they owe us big time. All right.
You know, someone's going to change it next time anyway.
No, they can't change that. They're not gonna change that.
Yeah,
I
we'll
love
put a
it.
footnote. This is golden. Do not touch.
Yeah. Immovable section shall not touch. Hmm. Great. Gary, thank you for doing all of this moving and editing. It is so nice to have it in front of our, just to see it. So mayor's office staff designee, I actually don't recall what's in there.
It's just it's you know, they're enforcing federal, state, and metro codes. They're recruit and coordinate volunteers. Create qualifications checklist based on the PB guidelines. Create partner eligibility checklist. You know, it's all the stuff that Metro does. I didn't have a problem with any of that, and it also has the disclaimer that, you know, they can't do anything that for which they will receive personal or financial benefit.
And it says that it includes, so it's not like an exclusive list either. I don't see any, I don't know that we would need to change anything, except that there needs a period, they need to have a period after checklist, it looks like.
Well, personally, I leave those open, so you probably
Yeah.
hate my minutes.
No, I think you need to do one or the other. And all of the
Yeah.
other ones have periods. There was one on Saturday and I almost lost my mind, but I didn't. Metro department staff, let's see, that one also has a disclaimer. Yes.
Can we add something on here of like provide expertise of you know, participatory budget process of PB processes or something?
Because that is what's happening.
Yeah, provide expert knowledge on
guidance
processes, or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want to say provide expert guidance, provide
I do.
yeah, no, totally awesome. I was like, guidance, knowledge didn't make sense. Okay. A PB process.
I think that's, yep. Shout out to Fabian.
Yeah, I mean, he did a good bit of like research to like talking to other cities and stuff and what they did. Like and they've done this a couple years, so yeah. Cool. Department staff.
Support budget delegates. Oh, that's with, basically, they're gonna need Metro's help to actually develop, you know, what is this gonna cost?
Right.
The $69,000 speed cushion or whatever.
Yeah, that's a second bullet. Provide cost estimates for project proposals.
Liaison to attend the meetings. That just needs to, it says they shall, in a timely manner, they shall. And maybe if we wanted to be really picky, we could say anything else in furtherance of developing the project, just because of the way the language reads. And we can make that more elegant language, but it's late. Can handle that on Saturday.
Now we have they will, so under Metro Council. So I think we should change that to shall to be consistent.
And put a colon.
Yep.
Oh, interesting that approved the supplement. Okay. I don't,
You don't what?
So they have developed the legislation that gave rise to this, which we have in our notebook. I was just curious, I might want some clarification. Endorse the voting results and approve supplemental legislation. I don't understand. If you can't shall approve, right? I mean, they have to vote on things and consider. So I'm just curious about, is there anything that would happen after? Because the citizens are voting. Oh, no, it says to implement. It says endorse the voting results and approve supplemental legislation to implement the
Yeah.
participatory budget program. Okay. That's okay with me then.
Can I give you some information on that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the second bullet, endorse the guidelines adopted by the steering committee, is that action that, remember, Fabian said we present a resolution to the Metro Council, and that resolution gets approved. That's what that is about.
Okay.
Right.
And then the one, endorse the voting results and approve supplemental legislation. That happens in December. After the vote has taken place, the results are tabulated. It goes to the Metro Council just so that they can officially endorse, and then the departments, because that's the structure of Metro government. The Metro Council makes a ruling, and then the departments have to follow it. So that is the endorsement that you're looking
So
at.
it has to be, okay, so it just has to be on the agenda for them to follow through with it and make it, basically effectuate it, right?
It's on the consent agenda, and it just goes right through, correct?
Yeah.
I
might put that in there. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the reason that one said may instead of shall is because we can't tell them what they do.
So as such,
Well, it says they will, which is the same as they shall.
Oh, okay. Well, it shouldn't say will either, but
yeah, it's kind of a funny little problem.
I don't think they were that picky with the language last year. So if you want to change it to may, you can do that.
It might be presenting it, right? To present the guidelines adopted by the steering committee for endorsement and present the voting results for approval. And I mean, because it does seem.
But see, they do have to endorse it. They do have to take the steps to do
for endorsement.
So
yeah, they had.
That's why it said will. But if you want to change it to shall, that's fine. But you can't really tell them what to do. But you're asking them to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why it kind of feels like, presenting for endorsement. But I know this is bad. I'm gonna just noodle on that. There's probably a way to make it cleaner. You want to noodle on it? For Saturday. But it makes sense. Quinta, thank you for explaining that this does go to the consent agenda. You guys want to move on to the liaisons?
Yep.
Maybe just add one bullet point. Anything else? A catch-all. Provide support is probably enough. The first one. That probably is enough of a catch-all. I like it. That one's fine, I think.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that section.
So Gary.
Gary, we got you 30 minutes of television.
Yes. And thank you for being the scribe. Thank you for doing it on the fly. Do you guys, in terms of Saturday, that's such a funny background. Oh my goodness.
That's all you saw right now.
That's all we saw. Yeah, it was just the funny little stormtrooper. So in terms of like how to do, I am so excited about like, let's wrap up our section. And I think we can. I don't want to rush things, but I think if we get a written portion, I can definitely set aside time and promise to set aside time to do lawyery, weird word things to it, and to dig into a draft. Gary, if you have time to send it to Quinta, I'm definitely willing to raise my hand and tear it up as necessary from the standpoint of just consistency of language.
I'm going to send it to her right now. I'm sorry I didn't send the last one until today. I forgot to look for her email until today. Where'd that just go?
Also, you guys are very easy to work with. I really appreciate everything that you say. You have great comments, and that's why we're here till 7:30.
Well, we also had the largest portion of the guidelines from the other in comparison to the other groups.
And I think our group, like we are very detailed oriented people. I have a feeling of
We're our own
We're
worst
gonna annoy the
enemies.
other groups.
We were our own worst enemies in this.
It'll be better though. It's going to help the next group. And I do think providing, more context. And honestly, Quinta, you've been absolutely fabulous in helping us, get over these conceptual issues that we've had in terms of knowing how the process works.
Well, I think you should pat yourself on the back, ladies and gentlemen, because if you can understand it, then that means the next group is ready to understand it. And all this is a process of improvement, communication, and understanding of the process. So thank you so much for being so detailed. Thank you for joining us today, Tiara.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, no, thank you.
Where is the thing? Okay, I have sent to you, Quinta. I also sent it to Fabian and I just sent it to everyone I could of the draft that we were just working on. So if we can help get that into Carol and Elizabeth's hands, I think we're done, right?
Will do. All right.
Thank you so much.
Right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Yes.
Happy Easter, Ron. Well, all
Thank
different
you.
religions. Happy.
Yes,
Happy, everybody.
All
Thank
right.
you for your time.
All right. Good
Bye-bye.
night.